I joined the Army in April 1990. I was living with my parents and finishing my second year of doing nothing in college. I was quitting my third rotten job in as many months because it was hard. At 19, I somehow understood that I had no work ethic whatsoever, and that this was something I should probably do something about. I realized that the Army would give me a chance to work on this. A couple of years of playing soldier would also allow me to put off making any real decisions about what to do with my life, while not actually wasting time. It would also get my parents off my back about how much college was costing. It seemed like a safe bet, too. In 1990, the US had no real enemies. Mickey Gorbachev was busy turning the Soviet Union into Ruski Disney. We still thought China was the third world. I wanted to play with cool toys in the Army, so I signed up to drive M1 tanks. I just had to wait until June for the next cycle of 14 weeks of combined basic training and tank school to begin. So, I spent the next 2 months trying to prepare myself for Army life. I half-heartedly tried to get in better shape. I let my hair grow as long as possible, so there'd be something decent to shave on the first day. Mostly, I watched the 1980s crop of realistic Vietnam War movies to get a feel for what military life would be like. Especially Kubrick's Full Metal Jacket, which was thought to depict basic training very accurately. Yeah, I was prepared. Mid-June came quickly, and I got into my training unit at Fort Knox, Kentucky. Staff Sergeant Pleasant made his presence, and the irony of his name, known on day one. The first time a skinny kid answered a question in the manner we had all learned from watching the Kubrick movie, "Sir, yes, sir!" Pleasant's response was immediate. "What did you call me, Private? Did you call me sir? I am not a goddamned officer. I work for a living. Get down and start doing push-ups. Keep beating your face until I get tired." As the kids trained to do the push-ups, I stood at terrified attention with the rest of the platoon as we were loudly informed that Full Metal Jacket was about Marine jarheads, not Army soldiers. Staff Sergeant Pleasant was a drill sergeant and was to be addressed as such. The only thing the film got right for Army recruits, everything had to be shouted at the tops of our lungs. Especially, "Yes, drill sergeant!" My heart sank as I realized what I had gotten myself into. For 14 weeks. It quickly became a routine. Up before dawn, physical training every day, learn whatever was on schedule for the day, and do push-ups for every little screw-up. Even meals were hellishly efficient. All 20 soldiers in my platoon would file into the mess hall, dead silent. We would have about 20 minutes as a group, so the last guy in line would have maybe 3 or 4 minutes to eat. The drill sergeant would stalk around, ordering us to slam that shit down, Private! Except for the one day that I drew kitchen patrol, KP, on August 2nd, 1990. Despite what the Beetle Bailey comic strip taught us, KP was not a punishment. Just a temporary assignment for a single day. For me, it was awesome. I had an absolute field day. I reported to the plain brick mess hall at 0530 with a few guys from other units. I stayed there all day long doing whatever menial tasks I was assigned. In my case, scrubbing pots and pans. I answered to the civilian employees who ran the facility, who were basically nice people. They didn't tend to yell. Once the work was done, maybe 90 minutes or so after each meal finished, my time was my own, a first since I had started basic. I had to hang around the mess hall, being available to do whatever the staff asked, but they didn't ask much. When I wasn't busy, I could watch the TVs we were never supposed to look at, or read the Army Times newspapers which were available. Even better, I could eat whatever I wanted and take my time doing it. And that's what I focused on. I chowed down for the entire entire rest of the day. Never in my life had cafeteria-style, mass-produced spaghetti or beef something or other tasted so good, and I could take my sweet time, free from having a drill sergeant shouting, "Eat it now, taste it later." And then there was my long-starved sweet tooth. At no other time were we allowed anywhere near the sodas and desserts, which were offered probably just to torture us. But on KP, I wasn't watched, and the staff didn't care. That was the best Coke I ever drank, and I drank gallons of it. In desserts, I ate all the green gelatin and chocolate sheet cake and instant banana pudding that I could get my hands on. I never even glanced at the TVs. I just ate, wandered around the mess hall looking at the various pictures and awards hanging on the walls, and talked with the other guys. We mainly commiserated about our basic training units and our drill sergeants. I had the best day anyone spent washing pots and pans ever. But while I spent a day in what seemed to be like heaven, the world was changing. Once I returned to barracks that evening, the rooms we slept in were eerily empty. There was a hubbub coming from the last room down the hall, a room we were never allowed to enter. The TV was on down there, and the entire platoon was in there, dressed in their barracks uniforms of brown boxers and t-shirts and shower shoes. Except one guy, Private Hack, a National Guardsman from Litchfield, Kentucky, who looked about 12. He was dressed like the others, but he also wore his Kevlar helmet. He had his gas mask slung over his shoulder, and he was terrified. "That's it! We're going to war! We're all going to war!" Everybody talked at once, but I eventually got the word. Some country I barely knew existed, Iraq, had invaded another country I'd never even heard of, Kuwait. President Bush had just announced that he was mobilizing the armed forces, sending several 100,000 troops to the Middle East. The drill sergeants had us watching CNN while they were in a briefing with the company commander. Realizing what all this meant, I got scared. My safe bet had gotten dangerous. "But I just joined up for the college money," was what everybody was saying. At the next morning's PT session, things were obviously more serious. As the drill sergeants were yelling at us to do more push-ups, their threats became specific and scary. "Push your lazy ass off the ground, Private. You gotta be strong so a 14-year-old Iraqi doesn't cut your balls off and use them for trophies." Even more ominous, we heard that the company graduating the next week had all of their orders changed the day before graduation. Instead of bases in the US or Germany, they were all going to Saudi Arabia. They would be on the front line when the expected war started. This added to my fear and the sense of urgency I felt to learn this crap. I knew the same thing could happen to me, and I better be ready. By the time my company graduated in October, Operation Desert Storm was well underway, with hundreds of thousands of American troops waiting for the shooting to start. My graduating class and I, we were pumped up and projected confidence. I talked big like everyone else about wanting to go kick some ass in the desert. But my fear was still very real. Some of my platoon did go to Saudi, but most of us went to units in the US or Europe. To my relief, I was assigned to stay at Fort Knox, staffing an M1 tank training and demonstration unit. Like most Americans, I watched the Gulf War on CNN. I stayed at Fort Knox for the duration of my 2-year enlistment before returning to Texas to complete my degree at UT Arlington and eat whatever I wanted, whenever I